Hi there, my name is JJ Plagiarisms. I was offered to make reviews for the Forgotten Games channel on unknown games and revitalize interesting games that flew under the radar even when they were new. And I happily accepted, and now my Forgotten Games series will continue on their channel. Yes, I have a series called Forgotten Games. Anyhow, let's start the video. The Wolfenstein franchise, perhaps one of the most influential video game series, only beat out by the likes of Super Mario, created in 1981 by programmer Silas Warner, the franchise essentially created the stealth action genre, as its innovative game design inspired many games afterwards such as Metal Gear. It was followed up by a sequel, 1984's Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, heavily inspired by the July 20th plot where a German conspirators tried to assassinate the German Führer. The studio that made said games closed down, and the Wolfenstein franchise went in a state of limbo, until a team of programmers that we now know as id Software purchased the rights from a woman in Baltimore for a dirt cheap price and essentially rebooted the series, with perhaps the most influential first-person shooter in history, 1992's Wolfenstein 3D, which created the modern identity of the series, creating a compelling and innovative game that many games afterwards mimicked. Wolfenstein 3D was a huge success and put id Software on the map. While id Software went on to ignore Wolfenstein and focus on the Doom and Quake series they created afterwards, when the boom of World War II related entertainment kicked off, with movies such as Saving Private Ryan, it was time to take the Wolfenstein franchise off the shelf. Return to Castle Wolfenstein, released in 2001, combines the original identity of the series and id Software's influential first-person design and made a whole new and original hybrid, which included a multiplayer which was very popular back in the day, and from what I hear, maintains a healthy player base today. The series had hit after hit, and the multiplayer was helped with the expansion Enemy Territory, which essentially increased the popularity. Then, 8 years of silence, until Activision, publishers of id Software games at the time, decided to release another game, simply titled Wolfenstein. This game, released in 2009, was commonly referred to as the black sheep of the franchise, until a certain other game took that title a decade later. The game disappointed critically and commercially, as the game received lukewarm reception from critics, selling 100,000 copies in its first month, which was a dirt poor number for a franchise like Wolfenstein. Alongside this, id Software were purchased by ZeniMax and was included in the Bethesda family 2 months before this game's launch. Wolfenstein 2009 is the rarest Wolfenstein game. Few physical copies were made and thus sold due to the acquisition. The game went off digital storefronts for unknown reasons, so now the only way to play this game is to buy a physical copy or play it on an emulator. So now I'm going to give this game an honest shot and see what I think of this game. Before we start the game, I want to say that this cover is badass. Probably the best in the series. First impressions looking at the cover, I'm like, whoa. But covers aren't everything. But still, good job for making this game stand out amongst other covers. So let's start the game. This particular game was developed by Raven Software, who co-developed Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War with Treyarch most recently. Yeah, Call of Duty. Oh boy. So we get to the main menu. Not too bad, there's a campaign and a multiplayer, like any other shooter. But good luck finding a match 12 years later, especially with poor sales. But from what I hear, the multiplayer was nothing special. So basically, I have to only focus on the single player. So the game is set at an unspecified time during World War II, probably 1942 or 1943. The opening cutscene shows BJ Blazkowicz, voiced by Peter Jasop, the same guy who voiced Paladin Danse in Fallout 4, stealing a medallion from a German general on a German battleship, the Tirpitz, and escapes with it. We see that it has mystical supernatural powers, and so Blazkowicz brings it back to the fictional Office of Secret Actions. They have a meeting and the OSA guys tell Blazkowicz that to power the medallion, he needs crystals. But the only place they mine crystals in the world is the fictional German city of Eisenstadt. So Blazkowicz is sent to the German town to meet up with the Chrysler Circle, led by Caroline Becker. Yeah, if you played the New Order, you'll know that name. This game is a semi-prequel to the New Order and the Old Blood even. The New Order heavily references the events of this game, even though the events of this game are not fully canon in the New Order timeline, but I don't see why it couldn't be canon from what I've seen. But anyways, on to the first level. In the first level, we get on a train to Eisenstadt and go meet up with a guy, and it's basically the tutorial to move around and stuff. Something all games have to a degree. After finally going down in the sewers, we finally get a gun, and I quickly thought during combat, wow, what an uncanny resemblance to Call of Duty. My early impressions were basically, oh yeah, this is Call of Duty with a Wolfenstein skin. It's got all the mechanics from sprinting to the regenerating health, in which they dumped the health bar and just copied the COD health system, with the screen getting more bloody the lower your health is, and you can throw back grenades. But the thing that irritates me the most is that the sprint is too damn slow. I was so used to the breakneck speed Blazkowicz would go in the New Order onwards, but now, screw it, make him run slower than I could. What the hell? The early weapon arsenal also heavily reminded me of World at War. I was thinking, really? You couldn't get more creative with the weapons? Also the turret. Good God. It's the same as Call of Duty games at the time. I could see why this game had a lukewarm reception. It feels like a COD clone, instead of expanding the identity Wolfenstein had. This was all fixed when the New Order came out, but I wish Raven Software had been a lot more original. Do something that sets the franchise apart from Call of Duty. And the shooting itself feels off. The bullets from the MP40 sound like pellets. Weapons don't sound very threatening. And this isn't helped by how it takes a bit more bullets to take down regular enemies. It was far more satisfying to kill enemies in the New Order. The guns felt and played like they actually did damage. I feel like I'm wasting far more bullets than I should be. The opening level also has a train that's carrying anti-gravity shiz, because why not? Getting out of the level, you soon see the remnants of the studio's original vision. This was meant to be an open world game, but that idea was scrapped. But elements of it can still be found in the finished game. Our first objective getting out of the train station is to go into the black market and buy some shiz. There's currency in-game, but all you really need to spend it on is weapon ammo and upgrades and shiz like that. We follow our escort to the Chrysler Circle base, and after trying to figure out where to go, we meet Caroline Becker, leader of the Chrysler Circle. She tells us that General Zeta, the German general in charge of the operation at Eisenstadt, is probably at the dig site outside of town. Throughout this playthrough, I was constantly reminded of Indiana Jones. Like, the cutscene I'm showing right now has music that sounds really similar to one of the scores from the first movie. Blazkowicz sneaks around, goes into some tent and knocks out a soldier and meets a Russian guy called Sergei Kovlov, who works for another faction called the Golden Dawn. Basically, Sergei reveals that he had been captured and tortured, where he revealed the location of an artifact called the Thule Medallion, something we need to retrieve before the Reich does. At this point, I only have an MP40 and a bolt-action rifle, the second of which is effing trash. I hate bolt-action rifles. They're so frustrating to use. Reloads and such is so damn slow. Also, when it comes to the MP40, I had a silencer upgrade only to realize that there isn't much of an emphasis on stealth. So forget about it. Just go in guns blazing. Why would you give us a stealth mechanic if you're not going to fully utilize it? Well, at least we don't have that commander that calls in reinforcements. So anyways, we get to some satanic-like ritual because 666 and whatnot. I interfere and kill everyone and go to the center of the room and pick up the Thule medallion presumably. Sergei gives us a crystal that gives us an ability to go into the Veil, this ultimate dimension that allows us to see things from a different perspective and also go through walls that aren't there in the normal dimension. This ability is also useful for fighting enemies in the dark, so I have to fight my way to another crystal that gives the Thule medallion a different ability, the ability to slow down time. But shiz! I got crushed! Now keep in mind, I sometimes slipped up by pure accident, but anyways, I get the slowdown crystal and use it to escape. I should also mention that around this time, the Veil has a bar of its own. That needs to be recharged by standing above a Veil pool or a Veil barrel, or some shiz like that. So after some slowdown puzzles and crap, I kill some enemies around a portal of some sort and plant dynamite on the portal, destroying it and now I have to escape back to Midtown. So I go through what looks like a mine, where I really have to rely on the veil to actually see what I'm shooting and have an easier time picking off targets. Because guess what? The veil also highlights targets too. With that, I escape the dig site and go back to Midtown. Now I go back to the Chrysler Circle base, which means I have to navigate the streets again. You know, I kind of preferred structured levels than a semi-open world game. I don't like having encounters on the street. Most of the time, I try to run past them like they don't exist because I don't feel like fighting. So I go back to Caroline, who assists us with another mission. Yes, this game is literally being tasked with missions to kill soldiers and hinder the Reich. This game doesn't have the presentation that the New Order had, which I get it. Wolfenstein wasn't about story. But I mean, it's around this time that a shooter has a compelling story of some sort, right? I mean, at least it has more plot than Doom, even with the reboot and Doom Eternal. They barely have a story outside of a codex. So anyways, we navigate the streets and go to the church, and it's here where the game really feels like Call of Duty with resistance fighters backing you up. It really feels like it. Our first proper objective is to destroy turret nests, which wasn't too bad. Then we proceed, killing more enemies, and it's here that we finally get a new enemy type, the Heavy Trooper. Now here's another problem I have with the game. The enemies don't really have a clear strategy to defeat. You look at Halo, and they have very predictable patterns that don't make them easy to beat, but shows you a way that you can beat them. So Heavy Troopers essentially have way too much health. I remember when I was introduced to the equivalent in the New Order. It didn't feel like it went on forever, but in this game, I'm supposed to shoot its weak points, but it doesn't seem to do anything. But when I finally kill it, I get a new weapon, the Particle Cannon, which shoots like a proton beam, but we don't use it to catch ghosts. More fighting, more enemies, more everything. I didn't really use the beam that much, mostly because I ran out so quickly. So using the veil often, I play the game like a cover-based shooter. I finally get inside the damn church, and I'm supposed to destroy the claps on the rings surrounding the machine, and since it moves around a lot, I use slow motion to shoot it properly. A possessed officer then attacks us, and I died a couple of times before I was finally able to kill it. And then we have a report at the Golden Dawn hideout, where we meet another Russian guy called Dr. Leonid Alexandrov. He tells us that he sent some of his troops out for a reconnaissance mission, but they never came back. So we have to go to a tavern called the Raven's Nest in a cutscene where we're introduced to Hans Gross, one of the antagonists. We meet up with the spy, and he tells us that the Golden Dawn had sent scouts to go and investigate a strange farm. So that's our next location. The whole level is just a barrage of enemies. They're goddamn everywhere. Although, I do like the farm scenery. It's nice to be out of the city. Going through the whole level, shooting from cover, and at one point, shooting down from the high ground. Eventually, I get down to an underground base. It's here where we get one of those World War II era rocket launchers. And then, we get to a large cannon. I may say, it's quite a challenging game. That's a plus, since it's not too hard. Keep in mind, I'm playing on normal. We get to a captured Golden Dawn guy, and he helps us progress through the level, and also I can commend the levels for being quite lengthy. A criticism I have for the New Order is that some levels are way too short, especially the last one. That should be the longest one, but here, you spend a long time in these levels. Hell, it might have more content than the New Order. There are a lot of side missions I never undertook. When I eventually get a new crystal, it gives us a new ability, Shields. Yeah! Each Veil ability has some use when you get to it. Now I can run past areas without taking damage. Thank you, game designers! We get the hell out of the area, get on a turret, which sucks, but thankfully it doesn't go on for very long. Going back to Midtown, I once again sprint straight to the Golden Dawn hideout without a care in the world. Alexandrov sends us to a hospital where we get a new enemy type, the Assassin, with a creepy voice, and I truly feel threatened. After the usual schlock of enemies, we have this super hard mini-boss, in which they prove to be my least favorite enemy in the damn game. They kill you without a minimal amount of hits, and they can turn invisible, so you need the veil to see them. Eventually the assassin died, but there's like a dozen more throughout the game. But for now, we're good. Around this time, I just ran past enemies and got a Tesla gun along the way. Sweet! We get to another cutscene after dealing with a barrage of enemies. where two enemies spot us and the officer pushes the doctor into the portal, transforming him into a Doom 2016 demon. That's what it looks like. To defeat this big boy, we have to destroy the pillars holding the portal. This isn't too bad, and after a cutscene of black squids entering the portal, we get a brand new crystal that allows us to increase damage. Yes! You know, my original impression of this game wasn't that great, but now the game is really turning around. We get out of the hospital and now the streets are really turning into an apocalypse. Unnatural enemies are everywhere. We go back to the Golden Dawn base again and we wrap things up with them. Now it's back to the Chrysler Circle, where Caroline tells us to go to a cannery. There isn't much to say. The difficulty is well balanced in this level, and all that really happens is that we get a flamethrower, far more effective than the blowtorch in the Thing video game, and we get another boss fight, General Zeta, who turns out to be a monster. The strategy to beating him is damaging him enough so he goes to a beam, then damage the beam so he can't use it. But it's harder than you probably think. He can kill you in just 2 hits, so be careful. He also gains an additional attacks methods to keep you on your toes. We kill him and escape the whole area. More navigating the streets, in which it keeps on getting harder and harder. We go to Caroline, who tells us to go downtown. We go downtown to do more damn navigating. Thankfully it isn't too hard to navigate, it's just that I don't like navigating. The Chrysler Circle's co-leader, Eric Engel, informs us that Caroline's been captured, and now we have to put up a rescue mission. So we have to storm the castle she's being held at. This feels like a World at War mission, where we just have backups storm the area, and we push forward. No retreat, no surrender. It's just a really good feeling. This level is quite fun. It's also here where we complete the weapon arsenal, with a very powerful anti-gravity gun and also jetpack troopers. They fly now. This part is also quite challenging. I died many times. Jesus, after all this time, we get to see who General Zeta's replacement is. Yep, it's the creepy German general we all love to hate, General Deathshead, the most prominent antagonist in the series. And it's here when Caroline is presumed dead when Deathshead's assistant Hans Gross shoots Caroline, and we don't see her for the rest of the damn game. Of course, if you played the New Order, we find out that she survived the whole ordeal, and they reference this stuff heavily in the New Order. Then a bug comes out and we have to shoot its egg sacs. 4 of them. We have to shoot it with a turret non-stop, and then defeat the enemies it throws at us. Trust me, it's a bit tedious, but after doing this 4 times, we have to kill it with our regular weapons. And we finally kill the large bug. We go back to Midtown, where Deathshead has set up towers all over the town, and there's a side mission where we get rid of them, but I didn't care to complete it. The footage already gave me so much gigabytes of data. Moving on, we go back to Eric Engel, and he tells us to go to the airfield to board a zeppelin and stop Deathshead. The airfield segment is hard. So hard that I had to change the difficulty. There's no clear strategy. You just have to hope you can kill all the enemies. It's that hard. We've got another mini-boss that was hard to beat even on easy, and I hadn't realized that I was using the wrong weapons. God damn it. More of the same enemies in the next section, except not as brutal. We get this convenient guy offering to sell us shiz for the final battle. And so I buy all the ammo and necessary upgrades I can buy, and after another barrage of enemies, we get onto the Zeppelin. There isn't much else to describe on the gameplay side at this point. I've explained all I need to explain. It turns out that Alexandrov is a spy that works for Deathshead, and of course, the villain kills his own men cliche happens when Deathshead orders Hans Gross to shoot Alexandrov, killing him, to where they immediately go through the portal to the Black Sun dimension. You see, it was revealed that Deathshead wants to blow up the town of Eisenstadt to crush the Chrysler Circle, and we have to stop him. So we follow that clown into the portal, where we get the final boss, Hans Gross. The strategy is just to dodge his attacks, but as we get closer to killing him, we have to give up crystal abilities to kill him. To where we eventually kill him, we go back to our dimension, getting a parachute as the Zeppelin is about to crash. We jump off and survive the landing and watch the Zeppelin crash as the Thule medallion dissolves and we can't use it anymore. And as we know, this is not the end, as Deathshead survives the crash and becomes the main antagonist in the next game, the New Order. But now for the final verdict, because that's the end of the game. This game was by no means a bad product, but I see why many had issues with it. It tried replicating other games way too much, and it wasn't exactly original, but it still managed to be an enjoyable game, and it remembered what franchise it belonged to, as the story is faithful to what the franchise is. If I can comment on the multiplayer, I would. And hey, at least this game doesn't have to be referred to as the black sheep anymore. With Wolfenstein Youngblood being a pile of shiz, we can look at the 2009 game and perhaps see positives, as we have seen what an actual bad Wolfenstein game looks like. Wolfenstein 2009 is now a cookie-cutter FPS game. It's a good game, but it's not that much of a Wolfenstein game. I enjoyed this game personally. Sure, the New Order is way better, but it didn't tarnish the Wolfenstein name. It just lowered standards for a franchise a teeny tiny bit. And I am grateful that Machine Games didn't disregard this game, but rather worked with it, as the New Order is the semi-sequel to this game. Of course, it's not completely canon to the New Order timeline, but you can play this game and then the New Order and still get a general idea of what went on. I agree with the critics. I'm giving this game a 7 out of 10. If you are a die-hard fan of the series, go play it. But if you want a truly compelling first-person shooter experience, play the New Order instead. I'm JJ Plagiarisms signing off for Forgotten Games. And until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes?